And now we will have our moment of silence. Thank you. Let's see, routine business, review of agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? Looks good. All right, thank you. Citizens' comments. If there's anyone in the audience in person or in Zoom. Okay. Let me just say my little blurb that we say at the beginning. All right, so in the spirit of open communication, the committee will hold a public participation segment about matters within the school committee's purview and not related to an agenda item at the beginning of each regular school committee meeting. Citizens' comments is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between or among citizens and the school committee superintendent. It is intended to offer citizens an opportunity to express their opinions on issues of school committee business. The committee will listen to but not respond to any comment made. A committee member may add an agenda item to a future meeting as a result of a citizen's comment. If you could state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
Mark Bisson, 39 Miller Street. How we
Thank
doing,
you.
guys?
Good, how are you?
So a couple quick comments. We've seen some, court rulings come down as it pertains to the mask in particular, New York being one of them. One thing I'd like to know is what's our strategy, once we start to remove these, do we have a strategy? If we can, let's review that and we can get it out to the public for a little transparency. Second remark I have is we received a COVID testing program today via email. One of the things that really stuck out is says that about the test, the iHealth is a 15-minute at home FDA approved rapid antigen test, right? So this took me all of about 3 minutes to figure out. Just go to iHome's own website. It says, I'll read it. This product has not been FDA cleared or approved. I mean, you guys got to do better. If we're going to start implementing these programs, you got to start putting out accurate information, right? What happened to the Binex now? Why aren't we using that anymore? Or are we still using it, right? So it's important that people read this stuff. All of these products that we're using are all under emergency use authorization. Nothing that you've been injecting into yourselves, the things you're testing yourself with, all that stuff is still under emergency use authorization. There's no liabilities attached to that, guys. So if you're going to put out information like this, you got to make sure it's accurate. I'll expect that we have a redaction and a send this out by Paula Moreno, whoever that is. So if we could, thank you.
Thank you. If there's anyone else on Zoom, I'll give it a second to see if anyone raises their hand, Lucas. Okay, I think we are good to go. Student representative comments.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us again. Not a ton going on the last 2 weeks. We're just getting back into things again. For sports, all the winter sports teams have been doing very well, and we've had really good turnout at every game. Most recently, last Friday, Franklin basketball had Nick Strong night in support of the freshman Nick Gaspar, and Franklin won. They beat Milford, and it's just a great community event to see everyone come together like that. As for the class of 2023, the junior class, the raffle calendar fundraiser is still going on, and winners are being announced every day, and they'll continue to be contacted. And members of the prom committee went to go see the prom venue in Randolph. Thank you to Lombardo's for hosting us, and they continue to prepare for our prom on May 6th. And guidance counselors have been meeting with juniors to discuss goals for the future after high school and take some more steps toward creating a schedule for those upcoming months and the next year or so. In other club news, Science NHS has been thinking about possibly sending some members to go talk and teach about science in elementary schools. We haven't taken a ton of concrete steps yet, but we've been discussing that and hopefully can get that moving this spring.
All right, so thank you, Robin. Hi, everyone. Just in terms of whole school news, tomorrow, January 26th, is the final day of quarter 2. and that will start the last semester of high school for the senior class. And then again, this new quarter starts next Thursday. A lot of new classes for students. They'll get adjusting, some time we spent there. And then also in honor of Nick Gasper, as Robin said, the FHS student government is hosting a mobile blood drive on February 11th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So please keep an eye out for registration and other details on that. In terms of other extracurriculars, a huge shout out to the mock trial team. They won their first preliminary trial on Thursday, defeating Joseph Case High School 684 to 69. And their next preliminary trial is this Thursday against the Newman School. So the best of luck to them as they compete for a chance to be in the state tournament. Furthermore, everyone involved with music at the high school is currently participating in a calendar raffle fundraiser. So if you haven't already done so, please get in touch with a music student that you know and purchase a raffle if possible to help the program. And speaking more about the music program, we held a successful jazz concert on last Wednesday, January 19th, excuse me. And it was just another great experience, another great live performance with people in the stands. It's always great to share our love of music with the community, and we have more opportunities to do that in the coming weeks on February 8th and February 10th in concert hour recitals, so you can mark those dates. As for the class of 2022, we finalized our disco theme for our senior banquet that will be held on April 1st, so more plans are in preparation for that, throwing it back a little bit. And we have graduation again set for June 3rd. That's a Friday. More senior week events, including a cruise in Boston, trip to Kimball Farms. Again, those are in the works. Hopefully we can still have those safely and responsibly, but a lot of exciting things happening. So stay tuned.
Thank you very much. It's exciting to hear all the stuff going on. I hope that all those events can happen as is planned. I love the disco theme. That's great. Any comments, questions?
I appreciate that you said the disco theme was throwing it back just a little, because my daughter calls 80s music old timey music.
Thank you both very much. You guys can.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Dr. Ahern, Superintendent's report.
Thank you. I have a couple things for the committee and the community this evening. The first thing that I want to start with are a few comments on behalf of the district related to LGBTQIA+ students and our care and concern for them. Last week, a video was generated and shared by some students with the goal of bringing awareness to school leadership, to educators, and to the Franklin High School community regarding homophobic and transphobic experiences experienced by members of our LGBTQIA+ community. In the time that's passed, we felt it extremely important to meet with our students to understand more directly from them what they wanted to share and to follow up. So we did that as an administrative team. And I want to underscore kind of the first piece before I go on related to my takeaways. And I think one of the things that I think we all took away, if you had seen the video, is just the students sharing their pain and the pain of others, and reflecting to us a worry and a concern that the pain is underestimated or unrecognized. So I think it's really important to put that out there first and foremost. And of course, that hurts me to hear that. And of course, we're taking everything very seriously, as we always do. But that pain was noted. And I think another main takeaway too is around communication. How can we as a system do better about sharing the ways in which we are actively seeking to make a safer, more inclusive school community? Because I know from my seat, I see it happening all the time among our administrative team and among our faculty and staff and our students. But there's a disconnect, and we need to make sure too that we're being communicative and supportive. Similar to some things that we had heard in the fall, I think there's a continuing concern around underreporting of situations and As much as our administrators spend time doing investigations, demystifying that process, I think, is one communicative step that we can do to help all of our students understand how that process would unfold. We need to be careful, of course, around privacy rights for all parties, but demystifying that, sharing a little bit more about the process, what kinds of safety and support plan resources are available. And although, again, we can't get into specifics, what range of disciplinary consequences and most specifically education would be offered and would be available. And so some of these themes we've heard previously and were shared again. We have done some things since the fall that we had talked about, and one that I really want to make note of was the campaign last week at Franklin High School, the No Place for Hate campaign that was launched with Principal Hannah and the administrative team, as well as by student representatives from the World of Difference Peer Leaders, Diversity Awareness Club, and the Sexuality and Gender Alliance. They served on the development team, and the intent is to garner a commitment from at least 75% of the students at Franklin High School in order to make the community a no place for hate community. And with that, they will undertake 3 school-wide activities in order to get that designation from the Anti-Defamation League. And these efforts, these activities will engage in productive dialogue and active learning on the topics of bias, bullying, and allyship. And I think that this is a really important thing to note. There are 2,000 people at Franklin High School and 5 administrators. And 5 administrators are actively responding in so many ways to create safe and inclusive school community. But it really is up to all of the individuals who make up the Franklin High School community to make it a safer and more inclusive place. We have lots of other efforts too that have been happening in the intervening months since I think we all experienced a terrible situation here in the council chambers. And so there are some follow-up efforts to note from that. We continue to partner with the Anti-Defamation League to train peer leaders at the middle school level and at the high school level. And that training has been actively going on in the month of December. And the peer leaders at the middle level prepare lessons for the 6th graders, which will occur this spring. We have implemented resource groups for students to gather and to discuss bias-based incidents and actions that they'd like to see to be taken to create a more equitable learning environment. And the FHS resource group, now that perhaps Omicron is letting up and we'll have faculty meetings in person, the resource group will bring the experiences to the high school faculty. And this is a way for us to amplify student voices and further that communication within the school setting. We hosted a diversity, equity, and inclusion workshop for winter athletic captains back in December. We wanted to kind of address some things that were happening in other communities and kind of proactively reach out to our captains to step up as leaders in creating inclusive spaces. There's been some professional development on incorporating diversity, equity, and inclusion into the curriculum. And you may hear more about that tonight when Mr. Hannah talks about the program of studies. We continue to offer the Speak Up at School professional development on interrupting microaggressions to faculty and staff. Mr. Jagir is working on updating the bullying intervention and prevention plan. This is something that happens every 2 years, and it was last updated 2 years ago. So it is timely, but extra care is being taken to kind of substantively update that. And the school committee policy subcommittee has been discussing the bullying policy as well in conjunction with that. There's a couple other things here as well. I want to note that we have posted for the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and we will undertake the interviewing and selection process in the coming weeks to bring on a Director of DEI. I think this position too can really help provide that communication with the student body in creating a safer, more inclusive space. The public consulting group has been awarded the bid for the equity audit. And so you can expect to hear in the coming weeks the work that they will be undertaking in February and March to collect both quantitative and qualitative data and provide us with some recommendations. We'll plan to do a more formal presentation to you in the next couple of meetings. And for a while now, on February 8th, we've had a school committee presentation planned to share a more comprehensive update of our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts with you as a school committee. And I've offered to the town administrator to come to the town council on February 16th and share that presentation with the town council and the greater Franklin community about our efforts. More than anything, I continue to be reminded of the need for the development and the nurturing of relationships among adults and students in our building. This was further reinforced in a different discussion I had with a high school student yesterday who independently shared this same assessment as she was talking about some positive experiences she has had with her teachers at Franklin High School. Relationships and communication help to build trust, and just extend the same invitation to members of our community who would like to know more about what we are doing to reach out, ask questions, and we'd be happy to share our efforts and to learn as well. We're always listening, learning, acting, and reflecting in all that we do. I have two other updates for the committee and the community. I do like to share professional development that we're undertaking with you. And at this point in the year, the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents holds a midwinter meeting. It's going to be Thursday via Zoom. It's a bit abbreviated this year because of the COVID numbers. But I did want to share that after some welcoming remarks from the superintendent, Tim Pivovar, who is the president of MASS, we will hear an update from the organization on their READY work, which stands for Race, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. They will introduce the association to their new publication, which is a resource guide called Getting Started with Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Work. And MASS recently conducted an internal equity audit. And the results of the survey of that audit are going to be shared with the membership, and I'll be attending that on Thursday morning. And lastly, I want to share a celebration. I want to congratulate one of our high school assistant principals, Dr. That was not a joke, that he slipped, Dr. Maria Weber. Dr. Weber recently defended her doctoral dissertation at Endicott College. She has been taking doctoral courses and completing a dissertation for the past 3 years. And now her graduation's in May officially, but having defended her dissertation, she can and ought to be referred to as Dr. Weber. The title of her dissertation was Teachers' Self-Efficacy, Perspectives from Teachers and School Leaders. She studied the factors influencing efficacy of school principals and assistant principals, and the factors affecting the self-efficacy of teachers and how the two are interrelated. And I just would ask the Franklin community to join me in congratulating Dr. Weber. And that is my update for you tonight.
Okay. Questions, comments? David?
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Hunt, so much for bringing to light everything that's already in place and that's being done, following the video. I know along with some other school committee members, had the opportunity to visit the high school and sign our names to the pledge for the No Place for Hate. Really commend all the work that's already being done, everything that's in place, and also the work ahead because there's a lot of work to be done, but I really commend all the admin, the faculty members, the teachers, the entire community for doing the work that ought to be done. And also too, just for the students listening and here as well, anyone who's, since the release of that video, I had a lot of conversations with a lot of individuals all across the community. And just want to let you know that your voices are heard. This isn't something that you have to suffer in silence. And so please, as Dr. Hearn mentioned, communication is so key. Talk to your teachers, talk to the principals, the admin team, talk to any of us. If you're ever experiencing any of these issues, please speak out. That's all.
I would just like to say thank you very much for the update, and it's great to know that the equity audit is moving forward, and we're really looking forward to seeing the results of that research as well as the recommendations that come from it. So thank you for that.
Elise?
Nope, all set. Thank you.
Megan?
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hearn, for all that. And yeah, so Dr. Hearn and I were talking a little bit over the past week, the video, we had a meeting too. And yeah, I know the school system does take this stuff very seriously, and we do have a lot of, DEI stuff in place, which is great. And I just want to make a couple of points. We should all be reasonable, respectful to each other. It takes a certain amount of courage for someone to come out and be yourself. Something I went through myself, and it's just plain cruel for someone to be disrespectful and make fun of someone just because they're different in any way. It doesn't cost anyone anything to acknowledge someone's identity or orientation, and that we all live in this community together, and we should just treat each other the same way that we would, like ourselves to be treated. That's it.
Thank you, Megan. And I guess I would just add that so long as bullying persists and individuals are not held responsible, just a reminder that children are hurt. When adults respond quickly and consistently, they send the message that this is not acceptable. Parents, staff, and the community must help students by talking about it and building a safe school environment. We must stay vigilant against bias and hateful acts in our schools to assure our community that the staff are here to help and address our concerns. There is no magical curriculum. Like Dr. Hearn said, we have 5 admin, strategy or keynote speaker that is going to create this change within our schools overnight. It is going to require all of us to come together and get very honest about what is working, what is not, and how we can do better. Thank you. All right, so I guess next, Dr. Hearn, guest presentations.
Thank you. So as we customarily do at this point in the year, we have a presentation from the high school principal regarding next year's program of studies. So Josh Hanna is joining us to talk about next year's program offerings in advance of course selection, which starts within the next couple of weeks.
Good evening. Am I good with mics at this point? Do I need to bring it closer? No, this is all set. All right. I want to make sure. And are you able to see the presentation?
He said closer.
Bring it closer. All right. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay. Projection over here behind you and or to my right. So yes, thank you. Good evening. And I am honored to represent Franklin High School in the work that we have done to create our 2022-2023 program of studies, which for those of you at home who perhaps don't have students at the high school, this is the document that captures all of the course offerings that we have at Franklin High School, which, recently I was at a meeting with a representative from a local college. We were exploring the idea of dual enrollment and wanted to kind of see what offerings they have and what offerings we had. And one of the first things that they said at the meeting was how impressed they were with the extent to which we offer opportunities to our students. So this has, of course, been going on for, probably decades, creating this experience, but it's one that's being recognized outside of our system as quite impressive. And tonight, I'll bring you through our process of adjusting our program of studies and highlight a couple of areas that we're excited to bring forward and also to answer questions you have as a means to gain approval. So first up, as always, we begin our meetings at Franklin High School with establishing our core beliefs, which is this idea of Panthers. And all of these words are relevant in the work that goes into deciding what offerings are going to exist for our students, right? So we want our students to be passionate about the subjects that they are choosing to study in the following year. We want them to be high performing. We want to make sure that we're putting our students in a position to be challenged, but also equally supported. And so when we put these core values up, it isn't a matter of, NEAS came through one day and said, hey, create an acronym that works for your school. We actually look into these deeply and make sure that what it is we're doing on a daily basis is aligned with these ideas, whether it be interactions with faculty, students, community members. And if we continue to look at that, I think it helps to support a lot of the great work that's going on. Underneath is, of course, our image regarding the skills that a portrait of a graduate of the Franklin Public Schools is able to interact with. And I'm sharing this information because this drives the adjustments that we make within our curriculum. So if it's not aligned with this, it's a no-go. And we're asking our department heads and teachers to consider what small adjustments might we be able to make to better align it to what it is we say we care about. While I'm on the topic and here in public, I would be remiss without giving a shout out to all of the members of our community, whether it be students, parents, faculty, for surviving and growing and frankly thriving in what for most people who have been in education for over a few decades will easily call the most difficult time in this work. And so a credit to everyone. We've had to compromise, we've had to adjust, we've had to find it deep down in our soul to continue the work, whether it be, as like I said, as it does not matter. This has impacted all of us in different ways. And for us to be at a place now where we're planning ahead with enthusiasm. I saw someone outside of Chambers earlier and I said, the last 48 hours, I've had more feelings of normalcy around a school year than in the past year and a half. And so I think we're getting to a great place, and the work tonight will highlight that. Beyond that, there are academic skills and expectations that we want to see in our assessments that are going on in our school. And finally, this commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion within our experiences. Are we listening? Are we learning? Are we acting? Are we reflecting? It's this constant process, right? It was brought up earlier. It's this idea we can always get better. We need to be vigilant. We need to understand there's different ways to approach the ever-changing reality of our world. And I think that this symbol captures what we're trying to do on a daily basis. In terms of a process, we'll thank our hardworking department heads at Franklin High School for consistently reviewing our offerings and making sure that they're aligned with what we know is best for our students and for their experience. We have a meeting that runs every 7 days. It's called Principals Council. We gather, we explore what it is that's happening management-wise and vision-wise. And that work is around alignment and making sure that the offerings are going to give our students the most competitive advantage for whatever it is that they're interested in doing beyond the 4 years at Franklin High School. We're considering DESE, Portrait of a Graduate, DEI, SEL, all these great acronyms. We're putting those lenses on and making sure that the way in which the course is being described and offered and experienced is in line with what it is that we're being asked to do. Adjustments were proposed and reviewed by the Franklin High School and Public School Administration, taking into consideration budget impact, and are we putting our resources in a place where our students most desperately need it. And now we're here proposing some of the changes to you this evening. Later on this month and early into February, students will start to choose from this document what courses that they take next year. So a few highlighted adjustments I'd like to share with you. Within our science department, we've made an adjustment to our earth science course to create an open honors section, which allows for students to take this at both a college prep and honors level. This allows for more heterogeneous environment within the class, which we've found overall makes for a better experience, because not only will this allow for students to kind of interact with folks who may not be in their normal section of classes, so to speak, but it also gives flexibility to the students to kind of pick and choose to what extent do they want to dive deeper into the subject matter while still getting a taste for it. So we all know there's certain people that already have decided what it is that they're going to be doing as an undergrad and masters and beyond, and there's others that are still kind of dipping their toe in the water, and we want to be able to accommodate both sides, because we feel like that's a reasonable way to go about a high school experience, and our teachers are adapted and equipped enough to offer kind of two different experiences within the same room, which really allows for more students to take elective options. And you'll see throughout the program of studies, many of our courses are open honors, and that's the big idea behind it. Calling out within our English department, a pretty standard curriculum experience for the students 9 through 11 with some electives in 12th grade year. We're not making adjustments to those particular classes, but what we're seeing is a change in our ESL students, our English language learners. There's been many different acronyms for this particular type of student over the last 5 years. So forgive me if I say ELD, ELL, ESL. We're always trying to be respectful of where these students are coming in. And what we're seeing is an increase in the number of students coming in without English as their kind of foundational language. We also recognize that they can intellectually understand most of the curriculum we have. So it's this language barrier we need to get through. And with numbers increasing currently right now at 13, projecting for them to be at 20 next year with a wide variety of experiences and knowledge base, we are looking to modify some of our experiences by bringing in a co-taught English class, which allows for a specialized EL teacher to be in the room with the curriculum content leader of an English teacher, kind of guiding on the side as that experience goes on, because we know that there are certain students who need that extra support in the classroom versus keeping them in a separate class where maybe they're getting too much support. Now, that's where this balance exists within supporting our EL students. You don't want to create crutches. You want to get them on a rehab plan, so to speak, so that they're out on their own, taking on what they intellectually we know they can. It's this language piece. And so we're incorporating a co-taught class. We're creating small credit support courses that are going to be based on their overall needs, but very specific. So for example, if we have students in a biology class, we're going to hand scribe a biology support period and draw those students out of their study hall into the space. We're working with Ms. Fernandez and the rest of our EL team who do fantastic work. I mean, their hearts are as big as the big TV right in front of me over here, and they have no end to their commitment to their students. And it's because of that that we've made these adjustments to our programming so that we can look ourselves in the mirror at the end of the experience and say, well, we've done the right thing for our students. And finally, SLIFE, which is an important acronym, and I wrote it out so people could understand it beyond just remembering the spoken word. Limited or interrupted formal education. So we are seeing students across all of Massachusetts coming in from different parts of the world with 4 or 5 years gap between where they are now and the last time that they had any type of formal education. So that's a different support system that's going to need to put in place. And we're already seeing students arriving into our school system with this particular need. So I call this out as, we talk about DEI and what does that mean and what books are we using in our classrooms and, how are we making sure that there's windows and mirrors in our experiences. But I think when we commit financially and programmatically to the ESL program, this is like the most actionable step we can say that we are committed to supporting everyone, no matter what it is. And we believe in you, and it's our responsibility to put programs together to help support them. Kind of jumping again into our world language program and looking at a range of students, right? You have a SLIFE student who may not have been in school for the last 5 years, any type of formal education. And then we have students that are ready to jump into the college experience. And we have a tremendous AP program. We have AP Spanish language and culture. We're now bringing AP Spanish literature and culture. This is going to allow for a number of our native Spanish speaking students to take more challenging curriculum because that is the language that they know. They kind of exhaust their challenge, so to speak, in some of our more traditional language courses, but this will be a tremendous opportunity for them. We are one of a few schools in Massachusetts who have the content expertise within our teaching staff to offer this class. And as you can see, our AP program continues to grow. Last year, we offered over 1,020 tests by 495 students. So I think, when you look at how do we make adjustments, we're always looking at the wide array of talent that our students have and making sure that we're hitting on things that they need and have asked for. Within our music and art department, we've moved from Guitar 1 to Guitar 1, or actually it was just guitar class. And it's been so popular that students want to advance their understanding of guitar playing. And so we were able to put together Guitar 1 and Guitar 2. Student who already has, pre-knowledge of guitar playing could test into Guitar 2 if Guitar 1 was a little too beginner-ish, I'll say. But again, this is coming from student interest and our love of music and reality of continuing to support our arts program. Similarly, Stagecraft 1 and Stagecraft 2, Mr. Skylar Grossman has done great work in bringing enthusiasm to our arts department. Many of you may have tuned in to Mamma Mia this past fall. And He's wanting to bring in more students with different expertise and background to be part of the shows. So the stagecraft is less about the performance on the stage and more about what's going on behind the scenes with lights and sound and the actual building of the set. And so we have a large number of students who are interested in that. This is just going to bring more folks into what we already know is a thriving part of our school community. This is more of a highlight and a reminder from last year that we have still 3 pathways for physical education and wellness for students, but starting with the class of 2025, students will be asked to choose one of 2 pathways, where in the past, students have been able to earn physical education credit for, doing things outside of the school system, going to the Planet Fitness as an example, or something along those lines. And what we kind of did an inventory on was how we were having a difficult time defending the kind of legitimacy of some of these experiences. They were coming in different forms, and it was a really big ask on our school counselors to verify these things. And if we're saying we believe in the importance of exercise, and we believe that from a mental health standpoint, we need to be, teaching lifelong kind of healthy behaviors, for us not to observe it seems kind of negligent. So although certain families may say, well, they do a lot of these things. It's like, okay, well, that can still happen. But for us to stamp it and give it credit, we need to see it. So we still have 2 pathways. If folks are participating within our interscholastic, activities, that'll still count in junior and senior year, but they'll either have to be in a class or be on campus with us for us to issue credit. So that's just a reminder. And finally, again, the FAA program is now under the directorship of Mr. Grossman, and he adjusted a few pieces of the criteria to graduate with FAA distinction and calling out a few standards that we felt like were important so that it was a closer community. We've kind of been without some leadership over the last couple of years for various reasons, and we really wanted to kind of like bring in what does it mean to graduate with FAA distinction, which includes taking a minimum of 5 FAA courses. We do have a large number of students that are in that program that want to take AP courses, and we don't want to limit their ability to kind of grow and study outside of the program. But for us to call it a true program, we feel like we need to have some expectations there, as well as a capstone project, which will allow for the community and teachers see what it is that they learned and created in their time there. And finally, there's some service credits and like community service expectations that can be within supporting the arts department, but and then obviously keeping up with what it is that they're asked to do in their other subjects, honoring the program. We really want this to be a special thing at the end of the year. Our work around all of this program of studies is summarized in this idea of a guaranteed and viable curriculum. This is part of our school improvement goal, and we're going to continue to make sure that all of our classes, no matter who they are taught by, have similar experiences. We believe that if we continue to work towards this goal and align what it is that we're doing on a consistent basis, that'll be the greatest foundation on student performance and achievement. And so we're working on finding schedules to help our teachers get together and empowering them with autonomy, but also asking them to make sure that their practices are being vetted and discussed. And we know we have a high care level when it comes to our staff. So there's no doubt we're going to get there. We've got to try to find ways to help them find time together. But that's what we're working on. And all of these classes are under this guise. And what does that mean exactly? Well, the curriculum, the instruction, the assessment, we're bringing all those things together, examining them, putting them through that same lens that we started at the beginning. DESE, DEI, SEL, Portrait of a Graduate. Are they within our experiences? Are we putting them at the most optimal level of our experiences? And we had some classes during our PD time 2 weeks ago where we discussed those things. So I tried to be brief, but enthusiastic with the presentation. I know you've had a chance to look at some of these documents, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have regarding the Franklin High School Program of Studies.
Thank you. I'll start with Camille. Any questions, comments?
I'd just like to compliment the open honors courses. Honor students can sometimes get siloed into tracks, and we definitely want to make sure that people are interacting with all different members of the population, and you get friends from all different groups and not see the same 5 kids in all your classes. So I love that. And also it gives kids the opportunity to say, I'd like to stretch a little bit. So thank you. Appreciate it.
David?
Thank you very much for the presentation. Yeah, I love, because I spent the past 2 years have been trying for everyone, especially for our educators, and I'm really excited. I love the enthusiasm, and I also can't wait to see what we're able to do as we get closer and closer back to our normal again. And so just really keep up the great work. Thank you very much.
Al?
Yep. So I don't know if you mentioned it, but FAA, what does that acronym stand for?
Sorry, that's the Franklin Arts Academy. So it's kind of like a school within a school. Doesn't actually have its own walls, but it's a distinction based on the experience you go through. And we offer courses where they focus on artistic ways to assess. And it doesn't mean necessarily you're creating like a paper mache example of every single thing, but what the teachers are asked to do is work within the arts department, whether it be in speaking and performing and singing and movie making, different ways to show their understanding. And it allows for many students to continue and take a larger scale level of art courses, whether it be in the performing arts or fine arts, et cetera, during their time at Franklin. And it's been a very, large point of pride within our school community. And I think we see the evidence of it with our successful performances and creations by our students.
Great, thank you. And then the other question is around just kind of the course selection. Can you speak to like how that process works? Is it just, they pick the course and they get in, or like is there?
Sure, that's a good question. So right now, teachers have been recommending courses for students over the course of the last few weeks and will occur, I think, until the end of this week. And at that time, students will be able to begin to kind of pick. Now, many of the courses are very kind of traditional. So the earlier stages of your career, there you have less variety. As you get further on, there's more options when it comes to, you've met your graduation requirements. Now it's a matter of what else do I want to explore? And we allow for flexibility within that exploration. The guidance counselor is always connected with the student, kind of making sure, asking them what it is that they have for, their hopes and dreams, and making sure that they're picking a path that keeps that relevant, because we wouldn't want someone to just, decide to pick some things and then say, well, I wanted to do this. And then, well, unfortunately, you kind of didn't go on that path. So it's always with guidance, but we've created quite a bit of kind of flexibility for the learner. Students are able to override teacher kind of recommendations, so as to say, a number of students who have overrode teacher decisions overall have found great success in their next step, and to the point where we feel as though people are making some pretty intelligent decisions around what their belief is. And what we always say is there's no doubt that you as a student can achieve at a high level on a certain small number of things. Where we want to protect people from is if you try to stretch yourself too thin in every area, because what we've seen is like that doesn't really help your overall experience. And it's not to say you can't be an all-star in all those spots, but we try to put some, guidelines together, some, just some support systems to say, hey, maybe this isn't the right year to take 5 AP courses. Maybe if you haven't taken any yet, you should start with 1 or 2, and then we'll kind of get there. You know what I mean? And I think that people need direction because they want to challenge themselves. They're excited. We get into this very unhealthy competition, in my opinion, about where people go as an undergrad. And parents and students are concerned if they don't take the most rigorous course load that could possibly be offered, then they're putting themselves in harm's way. And that's just not true. But we still are fighting that fight to prove that and to show it. I mean, we can say it, but either way, my point is that students will be picking their courses, and then that allows for us to build the schedule over the course of the spring, which, as you can imagine, for 1,700 students in that building, that's a heck of a jigsaw puzzle that we have a large team that supports, but it's not easy. So the sooner we get this information, the easier we are able to move forward with, okay, here's how much FTE we need, and here's what classrooms they'll be in, and here's how many sections we'll have, et cetera. Does that answer your question somewhat?
Yes, it does. No, much appreciated. It's just amazing to see all the work that you do and just the options that you give the students. I don't think most folks know how much we do for the students. So something like this is amazing and great. And I think it just shows why people should go to Franklin High School, or at least have their children go to Franklin High School and really invest in the school system. So thank you.
Well, the adults at Franklin High School care about kids. I've learned that loud and clear in the last 2 years. From every role in the building, there's a tremendous care level for our students.
Awesome. Dave?
Thank you so much for this presentation. I know personally for me, from my time at Franklin High, I benefited immensely from the wide variety of courses that I was able to choose from, and they set me up just fantastically academically for undergrad, grad school, and then me ending up where I am today. So I'm it's very glad to see that your work continues to expand upon, and you continue to provide rigorous courses in a variety that our students can continue to expand their skill set and learn. Though I do wish we had guitar class when I was there. That would have been that would have been something.
Absolutely. Little Van Halen. No, I was dating myself. Okay.
Old timey music.
So I do remember hearing from my time there, a little aside from the teachers that had been there a while, that we did have Aerosmith perform at the old Fieldhouse back in the
Wow.
day. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but so that would have been something if we could get that guitar class. But anyways, slight tangent there. So a couple questions, all related. I'm just wondering, could you maybe expand a little bit more on the input that was used to propose these adjustments?
Sure. So we were always asking our department heads to kind of think creatively around where is the department, what are the students saying on surveys back to teachers, what are other colleagues in these areas and other schools up to, where are we growing, where are we leading, where do we need to kind of catch up. So it kind of starts with the department heads, to be honest with you. They're listening to their teachers, they're listening to the students in those classes, and making sure that we are aligning our work with what their needs are, and also our own professional opinion of like what it is that this experience should consist of. So for example, with the adjustments in the ELL program, that was really around our changing of student body. So we saw that there was going to be an increase in students needing English support services. So, okay, well, what do those students look like? Where are they coming from? What is it? What do we need to do to kind of adjust our experiences to make sure we're hitting on those needs? So that's certainly one component. The other is, and again, a lot of our schedule is driven by our already stamped kind of graduation requirements. So there isn't as much an adjustment to our program of studies like holistically that we would be getting into unless we would decide to change the graduation requirements, which we're really not in a position to do that for various reasons, including right now they're aligned with the number of staff we have, the schedule we have, the experiences that students are having around the state. And we're seeing competitively our achievement is at a very high level for the schools that the offerings that we have. So when you use that as a reasonable guide, like if our students weren't achieving in the top 25% of the state, as an example, we would be saying, all right, what is it that we're missing with our experiences that aren't allowing them to show their understanding in these various assessments? So it's kind of a combination of student feedback, professional experience, kind of collaborating with other principals, department heads, and educational leaders, and then listening to what the state is setting as our standard for a diploma.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. And it's great to hear that student feedback plays a role in these adjustments, to being able to offer the students exactly what they believe that their needs best are and will best serve them. Stemming off of that, is student feedback also playing a role in not just the adjustments to the courses that are offered, but also new courses that are offered as well?
I mean, we don't independently ask students for courses that they'd like to see here that I'm aware of. I'm not familiar with those, a survey that goes out on that end, but I mean, we're always open to any new suggestion. And I mean, we have more clubs and classes that most high schools in the area can offer. So I really feel as though no matter what it is your interests are, you'll have an opportunity to study it. But we haven't, to my knowledge, in the last year and a half, explicitly asked students, are there courses that you're missing out on that you'd like to see in our program of studies?
Okay. Oh, thank you. And one last question. Was there a particular reason that these courses were chosen to make adjustments? Were these just the ones that got the most feedback or just saw the most need? I know you mentioned with the ELL was looking at the student body for needs there, but were there other just rationales for these courses in particular?
Well, again, there's a lot of trust that goes on in the experience of a large building like that. So we really kind of ask our department heads to do some inventory on where they are with their offerings and where it is they'd like to go. And I'm going to support any department head teacher that has a creative alternative to what it is that we're doing, as long as it falls within the guidelines of what it is we've said we do for a diploma. So I kind of look at not telling someone what to do, but listening hard enough to say, hey, I have this creative thought. I really want to expand this. How can we do that? And being totally honest, I don't know if this was the year to like really expect too much creativity coming out in these fall months. We were frankly in survival mode, and I'm not making an excuse. I just being honest, like we were just trying to keep our ship together, and we did that, I think, pretty admirably. And I think as we continue to grow and adjust our, distancing and things, we have some spaces in the school we'd like to consider adjustments around and see what type of additional creative experiences we could bring forward. But that's my honest response to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, just so encouraging to hear that Franklin High and also we as a school district always looking to grow and enhance the educational experience that we're offering to our students. So thank you very much for the work that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Elise?
Yeah, just a few questions. Thanks so much for the presentation and for keeping it brief and enthusiastic. You definitely met your goal there. So you started off meeting, talking about the dual enrollment conversation with the local college. So is that something that's been established already, or is it in the works, or is like a pipe dream, or what's an update on that?
I wouldn't say it's a pipe dream. I think that there's a number of different models that exist throughout the state right now, and we're doing inventory on where they exist and how successful are they. And we're really trying to, like, we have an AP program where a lot of our students who are already on this kind of track to, go to a 4-year college, that's already in their mindset. And we have that as an established program that works really well. Students who do well enough on the test can earn credits and start their program even more advanced than had they not taken the test, et cetera. What we're trying to do is find some ways to connect maybe some students who they're not thinking college is something that they would do, and try to share that experience with them so that they can have that, right? It's all about confidence in life. And so once you experience something successfully, you're like, oh, I can do this too. And so there are some programs in the area that are offering that. A lot of it's logistics around when the courses are. Some right now are being offered in the evening or on Saturdays. And that really doesn't jive too well with a student who might have a job after school, as an example. So we're in the midst of kind of connecting with some local institutions and seeing to what extent is there flexibility for, some of our teachers to become adjunct professors and teach a class at the school that then allows for them to buy credit afterwards. And, there's a lot of adjustments that I think we would have to consider and make, et cetera. But there's a model there. Mr. Jagir and I were together a few weeks ago and talking with one particular rep and just kind of brainstorming and seeing, what's available. We don't want to undercut any of the experiences that we already have at the school, but we do think there's a need to try to connect and allow for some early college credit earning to be able to occur. And again, really with the mindset of like, let's create an experience for students that might be on the fence about continuing their education and give them that foundational confidence to take that next step.
Can I piggyback on that? too?
Sure, please.
There's also opportunities to look at courses that don't compete with AP. But there's some advanced level courses like you heard from in our arts department and whatnot, that if they meet the criteria that the college has put forth for a class. So I'll use a class like stage casting. If there was a stage casting 3 or something that was more advanced that could be offered that was the equivalent to what in this particular case, what the college offered, there could be an opportunity there where a student in high school could pursue, if they were interested in that type of career or in that field to pursue, they could take a course at Franklin High that could then dual as a college credit in that area. There's a lot of logistics. This is a little bit of a premature conversation to go too much deeper, but we did mention it because there's some excitement around. I think the biggest takeaway I would have is Principal Hannah, his team, our team are interested to continue to look beyond, our current circumstances and the challenges that were referenced by Principal Hannah, and look to how can we continue to evolve as a district and provide our students with the most opportunity. So.
Thank you so much. I feel like that's so interesting, and I just commend the out of the box thinking, and I tend to get over enthusiastic. So thank you for saying it's a premature conversation, because that helps me, not ask about it next week. So I will be patient. You let me know when something's going on, and I just support that. And it sounds like really great opportunities for a variety of different types of students. You mentioned something about EL co-taught classes taught next year. How does that factor into budget planning? just sort of, I guess, like a very brief overview, not too in the weeds, because we'll get
Yeah,
there.
so we are in the process of continuing to grow our budget, and we do have some asks, and one of them is around additional support to our EL program because of the increase in number of students we'll be servicing next year. That's certainly an aspect of it, but right now with our enrollment shifting a little in a downward trend in terms of overall student body population, we have done the math and we do have the resources to staff the co-taught English environment. Because we know those students need it. It might include an increase in some of the class sizes in certain sections, but not dramatically. And it's been something that we've kind of examined through math-wise, whether we get the funding or not, we're still able to be offered this program.
Good to know. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And then, we've worked together on SWAC for the last couple of years together. And I think just a shout out to your admin team and you about making the shift to more rigorous PE expectation as far as the 3 tracks. I understand the flexibility and sort of the historical story there. But really the acknowledgement of the importance of physical wellness to mental health is so critical. And we talk about this all the time. And I really feel like it's helping to put the money where our mouth is, really to really bring that back more into the building and just make that expectation a little bit more rigorous. So I appreciate that. I was really excited to hear that. I was like giving you a thumbs up. Sorry to distract you.
That's all
a little
right.
bit excited. I'm like a cheerleader undercover. It's very subtle. Okay, thanks.
You say low key cheerleader. That's how the kids say.
Low key. Okay. Okay.
I'll take thumbs up, believe me. I mean,
Oh my gosh. I'm done.
Megan.
Sorry, Megan.
Thanks for the presentation. I think it was great. And yeah, it sounds like our students have a lot of good options. That's all I have.
I guess I'd just like to echo your praises to all of the staff and teachers who just went above and beyond over the past 2 years. I can't believe I'm saying that. I know this has been such an exhausting and trying time, and I appreciate you not using the word pivot and all the adjectives you threw out there. So I remember last year when you came in to give us an overview of the program of studies, you talked about expanding the world language offerings. Hearing about the deeper cultural exploration tonight was refreshing, so thank you. Keeping on the theme of last year, you had highlighted adjustments to courses such as the Race in American Society and the New World History course. Could you maybe give an example of how those are going?
Sure. So off the top of my head, I don't know whether we have 1 or 2 sections in race in American history, but I know it's running and it hadn't been running in years previous.
Yeah.
So we were able to get that as an established class. And by all accounts, it's going well, and it's relevant, obviously. So I think, those are really detailed examples of specific courses hitting on DEI. We're also trying to make sure that all of our courses have a DEI lens, and the curriculum work that we're doing during our PD session is to call those out so that it'll be shared as we invite new friends to our teams. They're going to realize, okay, this is when we focus on this particular book for this particular reason. Because I think unless we codify it and really focus in and say, okay, here's strategically why we're spending time here on this piece, it won't get done. That people get caught up in their timeline and in their content and forget that there's multiple ways to infuse these experiences in, but we need to do it collectively. So we're confident in the implementation and strategically so that it's occurring in the right time of the year. As an example, as I think back on my own personal career as a teacher, teaching a US history course, and we would teach the Civil War typically in June, which, there wasn't this lens of like, when do we teach what we teach? And the Civil War being arguably one of the more important parts of US history, to teach it in June when everyone is basically like shut down, that's not a very intelligent decision, right? And we should have been either teaching it thematically or put it at the beginning of the next year. So there's adjustments that we're making along those lines, not that specifically within our school, but you don't understand what I'm saying. Like, let's get at 30,000 feet, see what the experience looks like, make sure that it is in line with what it is that we're saying we need our students to kind of experience, hear, see, and Race in American Society is certainly an example of that. I forget the other that
In the presentation from last year, it was called New World History.
So there's a new world history curriculum
Okay,
that's been adjusted through the state around. I'm forgetting the specific timeline, but the civics project got put in and we had to condense down the world history experience. And again, by all accounts, these things are going well. I would love to say I'm spending a tremendous amount of time in all of our classrooms, and I'm embarrassed to not be able to speak totally intelligently on all of those things, but yeah, I have full trust in Mr. McCarthy, who's our history department chair. He does great work. We had a fantastic meeting last week with the adjustments that his department's been making. One of our more tenured groups in the school, by the way. But either way, that's kind of an update on those things.
thank you. I love hearing that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then just, you had mentioned community service. I know some students have a hard time finding opportunities. I feel like I always see at one particular time on Facebook, like parents frantically trying to find things. Are we pulling together any kind of resources for students?
Sure. The community service that was discussed in this presentation is specifically for the FAA. And what they're trying to do is recruit students within that program to help some of the performances, to help with, the art show or the musical, et cetera. The wider scale community service that's a part of the graduation requirement, we're still looking at, that's been on hiatus as it's been really hard to gain community service experiences during this time. A lot of the kind of more traditional large scale ways to get those hours have been shut down or limiting.
Yeah.
And so we currently are not holding that as a graduation requirement, so as not to create this stress. And I would, to answer your question, we should, if we're going to have it as a graduation requirement, make sure that we have an organized outline of where you can get these experiences and how to sign up for them and how to participate in them. And right now that is not being kind of monitored as part of the graduation requirement. We're not saying you shouldn't do community service. We're just not holding students to that statement. So I would say for anyone who's at home listening, please do not have anxiety over whether or not you get your community service hours, because we recognize that. And also I feel kind of like that should be something you do within your own soul. Like if that's what you want to do, great. But I'm not so sure it's the school's place to be holding that as a requirement when we can't even offer you the opportunities to do it and or really check to see whether it was done either. So there's multiple components to that. It's similar to the third track of the wellness piece where we start saying you need to do these things, but we're not really monitoring them. I get a little uncomfortable with that.
Thank you very
Not to
much.
say we shouldn't do community service. I just don't know if it needs to be graduation.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay.
Did you have?
I did.
You were waving, so
I did. I had a couple other things that I thought about when you were talking. First, I want to say, Josh, I've known you since we were baby teachers 22 years ago. We started at the same school. So I know that you will not hear this in the way. And I also know my role as a school committee member. This is just wishful thinking as a teacher, as a community member, as a parent. In the future, to have opportunities for interdisciplinary classes. I know that lots of teachers would be excited to work with their colleagues, and they feel sometimes they're in an isolated island. That is not a school committee member saying, please go make more work for teachers. But that would just be a nice thing to think about if teachers were interested in collaborating with their colleagues. The other one is I would like to reiterate what you said to parents about choices for students, and it's a good thing. Sometimes parents don't know this, that the landscape really has changed. It's not, we all apply to the same 10 schools, and then we all go crazy if we don't get the brand name school we want. Kids are taking gap years, they're taking gap 2 years, they are starting businesses, they're going to community college, saving money, and then transferring to another school. That's a really smart thing to do, parents. They are also, I have seen connections between our work with mental health and kids actually saying, because I survey them, what are your plans for next year? And they say, you know what? I don't need to take 5 APs. And it's finally the kids saying it, saying that would not be good for my mental health. I need to enjoy my junior year. I need to pursue my passions. They really struggle with thinking I have to give up ballet, which I love, because I need to take 5 courses. I have seen a big change in the students. And I think it's because we have focused on their mental health, and they are claiming that for themselves, that this is not healthy for me to be constantly working and constantly studying. And I want to be a well-rounded, but not even well-rounded, like someone with passions. And so I would encourage parents not to overemphasize the level that their kids are taking. But if you love science, that makes sense to take the highest level you can or a rigorous course because it's something you're crazy and love. But if it's a course you hate, if you hate reading, do not take AP, please. Your teacher will appreciate that you not take AP. From a teacher's perspective, from a parent perspective, it makes me happy to see this, the kids advocating for themselves and taking what makes sense for them for their future. So that's my little rant. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Hannah. That was great. Thank you.
Have a great evening. Thanks.
You too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Next on the agenda, we have
figured
two discussion action items, and they are related to the high school. So Mr. Hannah is going to stick around in case there's questions. The first one is related to a proposed senior perk. We have had senior perks for some time, and they kind of, there's a couple different ones that Mr. Hannah could talk about. This one would involve, I think it's kind of a win-win for lots of people, but it would involve extending senior perk to the lunch block. So a couple of years ago, we put in a senior perk so that students who are seniors in good standing could arrive late to school if they had a study hall, or they could leave early if they had a study hall. And it wouldn't be every day because our schedule rotates. So we piloted that, I want to say in the spring of 2018. And we went through a process where it was brought to the school committee, and the attendance policy was temporarily suspended, which would have expected them to have been present in those classes. And it was successful. And we ended up incorporating it into the school handbooks for the following year. So along those lines, fast forward a couple of years, Mr. Hannah and his team are proposing doing something similar related to lunch. And it would involve seniors who have studied during the lunch block being able to leave campus and then return for their last period class. The proposal that you have does require that they be in good standing, and there are some other parameters in there, including parent and guardian permission. We want to make sure that everybody is fully informed of what's happening. And there are some examples in there as well about other districts that have something similar. And I don't think that's an exhaustive list. I think it's just a sample of neighboring communities. So with that, I recommend approval of the request of Principal Josh Hannah to extend senior perks to include lunch block for students in directed study as detailed.
All right. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, discussion, questions, Camille?
No.
Dave Callahan? Al?
Yep, so I do have some questions. I think this is a great idea. It's just some details of looking to find out. So right now with this, it's going to be for this year. We'll trial it for the end of the year. I guess what's our success criteria? What's going to be to let us know that, yep, this worked, and then we should do it for next year to make this official.
I'm going to defer to Josh if you don't mind.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the areas of success that we can look at is student performance with a mandate or a minimum grade threshold. We'll be evaluating this every 2 weeks. And if we see, students achieving at a level beyond on average, we can run the reports on that would be an indication that that's helped in terms of like keeping seniors in particular who can have a tendency to look at second semester as an opportunity to slide, keep them kind of honest during the environment of a year where, maybe they're not putting forth their most concentrated effort. And no disrespect to seniors, that's just a reality of the experience. And so I think that would be one. I think obviously seeing students continue to return to school for their last period of class and not, and again, like I have no reason to think that our seniors won't meet the standard every time we've set forth an example, even amongst this most difficult return to school, they've met what it is we've asked of them. And currently, right now, if you were to visit our library, you would see students, 50 some odd students, you see the numbers, how many per, period, sitting in the library for like an hour and a half. And I just feel really strongly that if we're going to have a portrait of a graduate expectation and standard of managing time well, this is a perfect example for us to kind of see whether or not they're capable of doing that. So if we see a long list of, inability to get back on time, or they just can't manage it, then that would be an example of a reason why we would pull it back. But with so many schools that I've worked at in the past, I feel like it's only going to help our culture. It's a lot more trust. These students are driving their cars up and down 495 for the most part anyways. So I really don't see there being any reason why they shouldn't be able to handle this responsibility. And I think I would be looking at a grade threshold and also any type of increased discipline referral as examples as to why we might say, you know what, we're just not quite ready for this yet.
Great. And then in terms of implementation, this would just be for the rest of this year. So graduation is in June. So do we have a date when we'll come back here to present out on the findings and kind of making it official for the following school year?
Yeah, that would be during the school handbook presentation, which would be, I think, sometime in August, I believe.
Yep.
So, if this goes well, if our trial succeeds, then that would be a more formal commitment within our handbook to allow for that to continue for the following year.
And then knowing that this is going to impact the juniors going to be seniors next year, are we looking at those students to see, are they changing their behaviors now in preparation for this to go live to see if that moves the needle and just kind of increase the numbers of eligible students?
Yeah, you have to be at a threshold to begin senior perks. It doesn't happen until after the first cycle of that fall. So we already have that kind of in place. You don't just default to being able to participate in them. So we will be encouraging our juniors to be monitoring their standing attendance wise, grade wise, behaviorally. And that's the other thing, like it allows for us to use a progressive style of discipline that isn't just suspension. Students are going to want to honor their perks. And if that's what you take away from them, they still can come to school, but then they just can't go home. And so it's a nice way for us to say, sorry, this behavior doesn't allow you to have your perks any longer, but we're not suspending them or removing them from their environment. So I think it's a win-win for us in terms of trying to model progressive discipline that keeps people in the learning environment, because we know that they need the structure of the school and the experiences in the classroom.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to say, I think the model of progressive discipline, that sounds extremely beneficial. And also when you touch on how this introduces more trust between the school and the students, I think that's also wonderful. I mean, demonstrating to students that you do trust them, and also helping them to cultivate life skills of time management and self-sufficiency. I think that's also allows them to put trust in themselves and make somebody capable to go into the world post Franklin High. So yeah, no, sounds great. Thank you.
Elise?
Yeah, so, okay, just to clarify, so to be able to take advantage of the senior perk, the student would have to have good academic standing, they would have to have parent or guardian permission. And if, so you talked about sort of like success criteria for the whole group, but say there's like a couple individuals, if somebody's getting up to mischief, coming back to school or not coming back to school or whatever. So at any point, the school can revoke this privilege, the parents can revoke this privilege.
Absolutely.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. There's no this is a perk.
Yeah.
It's a privilege. It isn't a right.
Okay. As a parent, that feels good for me to hear that part.
Yeah.
I think that's important. That's important. So it's like we are trusting you with this. You show us that you're ready to hold this responsibility.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I really feel like the Portrait of Graduate Skills calls us to test this.
Yeah.
And right now, we're not testing it with an age group of students that I think are more than capable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I think it's tying it to the portrait of graduates really powerful too. So thanks.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it.
Megan?
Yeah, I think it sounds like a great idea. When I went to high school many years ago, we had something similar. It was like less official though, but we were allowed to, if you're in good shape as a student, you can come and go, like you said, morning, late, and lunch. And besides, these kids are going to be doing this anyways in a year when they're in college too. So it's yeah, a good way to award, students by being pretty good. So I think it's great.
I just have a question. So I
Sure.
know that there are some students who it says they could leave and not come back. Then there are students that leave and do come back. While they're out, who's liable for them? Say something awful happens. Who's responsible? Is it the school because the children are in school?
I think that's where the parent and guardian permission plays a huge
Okay.
role, with kind of a permission
That'll be
form.
tied into
That would
that.
be tied in. Same with,
Okay.
how the arriving late and leaving early kind of falls in. That's where the parent permission piece comes in.
Okay, all right, perfect. All right, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion, questions? Nope. Okay. Vote will come on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, Dr. Ahern?
Great, thank you. So another exciting high school discussion action item comes before you, which is an overnight out-of-state travel request on behalf of our varsity cheerleading team. And they are here joining us tonight with a couple parents from the booster organization and their coach, Donnie Gill. So this is coming to you as a out-of-state field trip. And I want to take a little bit of time to talk about some background and set the stage. We have not done a lot of, if any, national trips for athletic competitions. We have done some regional and we have done some, regional and state travel in my time in the last 5 years. But this proposal is coming to you in part out of recognition of a pretty significant accomplishment with them achieving a championship level at the state level. So I think that there's some precedent setting to be considered here because we are making a recommendation that the school committee support this trip. And with that precedent, really thinking about how it may impact other proposals that would come forward. And there's a wealth of opportunities for kids to travel. So how are we, sort of applying a lens that that manages it for a couple of reasons. One, the trip proposal that you're looking at does require 2 days out of school, which would be an exception to your trip policy. So that's something of consideration. And initially, that was kind of why we were thinking of bringing this forward. We didn't think that that we should bring it forward because it didn't fall in line with your policy. But looking at some of the other trips that have been approved, there have been other trips like the DECA trip that's coming up to Boston that do also require time outside of school. So we reconsidered that from our thought process. So it's not just the time out of school that we think about when we think about trips. We also think about the kind of impact to the community with respect to fundraising and also the impact to individual students with respect to funding a trip. And so, there do have to be some parameters, there do have to be some limits and some guidelines around supporting this. But in talking with Mr. Hanna and talking with Mr. Angelo, one of the criteria that we'd like to kind of establish is this idea that a trip would be on the table or be considered for groups that win a state championship, which is a pretty elite level of play and would kind of allow them to proceed forward in a national, take it to the next level with a national competition. So there's a detailed proposal in your school committee packet. And it sounds really exciting in terms of their competition in Orlando, which is coming up in March. There is some detail in here related to fundraising and the cost of the trip. And also some additional information. Since the packet went out on Friday, I did receive an updated copy of this. So there's information about trip insurance that was purchased. So a revised or updated version is put in your packet in the Google Drive. So that came in on Friday afternoon. I'm sure people would be happy to answer questions, but I guess I'll just summarize by saying I recommend approval of the request of Coach Donnie Gill to take 11 cheerleaders to Orlando, Florida from March 18th to 21st, 2022 for the Nationals competition as detailed.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? All
Second.
right, discussion, questions, Camille,
No.
Dave?
Yeah, this is wonderful. Congratulations. This trip is well deserved and best of luck down in Florida.
Al?
Just a comment, similar to Dave, congrats on this. I can't imagine the countless of hours you've put into this, the dedication, the passion. So wish you the best of luck.
Dave?
Just like to echo that. Yeah, congratulations getting to this level. That's fantastic work.
Elise?
Same. Congratulations. We're so excited to see you coming in here tonight. And we hope that you'll cheer after we vote, but she said. I asked.
You want to do it.
You're welcome. I told her no.
She's not low key anymore.
Megan?
Oh, no, congratulations.
Yeah, nothing. Congratulations. This is a great honor. So best of luck. All right, so motion and a second. All right, vote will come on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. Want to see tons of pictures when you come back. All right. Oh, yeah, get out of here. Get, go home. All right. Have a good night. Oh my God. It's not that often we get to make people happy. So, yay. Dr. Ahern, next on the list.
Next on the list, so at the last school committee meeting, I had shared with you that I would come back with some thoughts and ideas related to the master facilities plan. And so my recommendation and my suggestion is that the school committee establish a space needs and facilities assessment subcommittee to spend the next several months kind of doing some research, gathering some information about our space needs, as well as kind of where we are currently with respect to our facilities. And I would offer that did you just hear them outside?
Yeah, I feel cheering. That
welcome.
made my month.
For those watching at home, we just heard the team cheer in the parking lot.
Yeah.
So good for them. So some things have changed. They're still cheering. I don't know if anybody. So this would be in some ways picking up where the McKibben report and Castle Booth's presentation left off, but there have been some things that have changed, and I think some things that warrant some further looking at. One is how we're using space in kind of this COVID pandemic. I think, and we're still going to continue to use space differently than we did when the first facilities assessment analysis was done. Demographics, we're going to need to continue to monitor. I think we're pretty stable, but the housing market last spring and summer was wild, and so we did see some increases in some places, and I certainly think that there may be still some volatility with interest rates going up potentially. So we'll have to keep an eye on the demographics. But I think that having a subcommittee would be a good place to start. The name Space Needs and Facilities Assessment was what this subcommittee was called probably about 20 years ago. There was a similar group that had put together a report, and I have the kind of details from that in my office 20 years ago when the district was kind of in a different environment in terms of rapid growth and making some decisions about how the district would be laid out geographically. So it seemed very similar to me when you fast forward 20 years. So my recommendation is that the school committee establish a space needs facilities assessment subcommittee to meet with me and some central office team members, principals as needed, to look at our enrollment, the considerations related to our specialized programs and some program expansion that we might be able to predict. I think that is a huge factor to take into consideration related to the next 10 years and how the facilities are being used. Space utilization as a result of the pandemic, and the condition and educational adequacy at some of our older schools. So that would be Kennedy and Parmenter, and just keeping tabs on that. There's still some old modulars at Kennedy, for example, and some things from the report. Ultimately, I wouldn't recommend engaging any consultants now. I think right now it would be a matter of kind of gathering information internally and maybe employing a consultant next year to be thinking about a master facilities plan. I did feel like it was my responsibility to put on the table that redistricting may be a recommendation that comes out of the subcommittee. I don't want to presuppose anything, but I also do feel like it would be responsible to put that out on the table. And new school construction could also be a possible recommendation. And I just say that from experience with the Castle Blues report. So we felt responsible in putting those out. This subcommittee would not be, if it were to go the route of new building construction, that's a whole nother process with a different building committee involving members of the town. So that would be kind of a separate piece, but I think at this point, my recommendation for a next step would be to establish a subcommittee as detailed. So that is my recommendation.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Right, discussion, questions, Camille,
No.
Dave? No. Al?
No.
Dave?
No.
Elise?
No.
Megan?
No.
Okay. So I guess I just have a question. So you had mentioned the master facilities plan and possibly redistricting. So if out of this space needs and facilities assessment subcommittee, we could still then have a master facilities subcommittee and a redistricting subcommittee stem out of it.
I think this could morph into a redistricting, kind of a subcommittee that looks at redistricting. I think if it were to look at the master facilities plan and it were to involve any new construction, then you'd be looking at a new committee coming out of it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So we have a motion and a second. All right. Vote will come on the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Dr. Hearn, discussion only items.
So discussion only, in your packet, as we've been doing lately, you have some COVID numbers as part of our status update. I was not going to display them this evening, but just sort of run through them orally. The numbers as of last Thursday are still quite high, with 21.54% positivity in Franklin, although I think there is a little bit of a lag in terms of that reporting. And maybe we've turned the corner, much like the state has, and the wastewater data is showing that we may be starting to dip a little bit in terms of positive cases. But there have been a lot of positive cases lately. And we'll talk a little bit more about, I think, what that may mean or does mean in terms of kind of the testing environment that we're in. On the second page, it's graphed for you. As usual, we're following the vaccination rate information. Again, there's a little bit of a delay with how that gets reported to the state. And we're seeing some increases week over week in terms of the percent students with 1 dose or 2 doses. But I think we're still predominantly seeing, higher vaccination rates among our older children compared to the younger ones. And 2 weeks ago, we had a high of 246 positive cases. That was the week right after winter break. And we're starting to see a reduction there with 176 last week. We continued to have a large number of students and staff out due to quarantine or isolation, as you might imagine, with numbers that high. That is improving. I've been keeping track of attendance on a daily basis. Over the last 3 weeks, we had a high of 15% of our students out on one day and a high of 12% of our staff out on one day. This is district-wide. pockets were higher and lower in some places than others, causing some pressure points for some buildings, but that was the average. Fast forward to yesterday and today, those are cut in half, actually more than half for the students. So we had 6% of our students absent today and 6% of faculty and staff out today. So we're seeing some improvement there. Although it's not easy by any means. I think the hardest part right now is the contact tracing. Without a doubt, it's the contact tracing. It is consuming, and Paula can certainly talk more about this, but it is consuming an inordinate amount of time for our nurses and our administrators. And I'm not sure that the value that we're getting out of it. And I say this for a couple of reasons. One is that the close contacts that have been identified and unvaccinated coming back into school, participating in test and stay. We've had such low numbers of people then turning up positive. I think it's really demonstrating that our school community is really quite safe in terms of the distancing and the mask wearing and the air filtration. We are also, I think, running into some challenges now with so many people having had COVID that you do contact tracing, but so many of our close contacts are exempt. And so it's just really nuanced and really complicated. And the numbers have been so high. I think the message too is that COVID's all around. I don't have nearly the same level of interaction with people. I meet with people every day, but not the same level of interaction with folks that people in our schools do. And I've been in contact with 4 or 5 individuals over the last 2 weeks myself. So I just think that it's everywhere. And that really changes and needs to change our approach. Needs to change how we go about testing. And that's essentially the message that's come out of the Department of Education over the last week with the new testing program. So we have sent out a notification to faculty and staff. We've sent out a notification to families and starting the process of having people opt in to the rapid antigen tests. There are 2 tests per kit. The intention is that they go home every other week, and we will ask families and ask our faculty and staff to test on Wednesdays. We think that, especially with the predominant variant that's out now, that seems to be showing up earlier in that infectious period around day 3, that would capture weekend exposures, would also give us time to have people out in isolation, but that time out in isolation would be inclusive of the weekend, and then they could return at some point in the following week if they were symptomatic and their symptoms were improving. So we think it's the right move. We think it's the right thing to do, and have responded to the Department of Ed's survey and request in order to move in that direction. We've been in touch with the Franklin Educators Association, and I think would feel comfortable saying that our staff is on board, in particular our nurses who are looking for some relief. We would continue to do symptomatic testing. I think expectation is that you can only do this if you do either pooled testing or symptomatic testing as a district. So we would continue to do symptomatic testing in the schools. And I think that would allow the nurses to kind of focus and target their efforts where it might be most helpful. So I think we'd be happy to answer any questions along those lines.
Okay, I'll go down the line. Camille? No. Dave?
Are you aware with the rapid antigen test that would be sent to, like, delivered to the families? Have they stated if that will, carry forward through the end of the school year or for a number of weeks, or until so many tests have been delivered?
Right now, they're saying it's going through April vacation.
Okay.
That's the latest That's what we heard in the first webinar. But we always know that could
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
That could change tomorrow.
It could change. But there is a webinar tomorrow, so it could
Oh,
change.
see, so there you go.
Thank you. And the contact tracing, will that still be done if we're going into the rapid antigen?
No, thank you for clarifying that. I don't think I said that. basically, with this new testing model, contact tracing and test and stay would stop. And this would replace it.
Thank you very much.
Al,
No questions.
Dave?
I was just, thank you for that update on the at-home testing. That sounds like a wise move, and I look forward to hearing any other updates you have for us in the future in regards to how that's being implemented when it does. Just one other question. Given the number of staff that have been quarantined over the past few weeks with Omicron, how, like, overall, is there a sense of how well the courses and the respective curriculum, are they still on pace for where they're supposed to be relatively, or how has that been?
I think it's been pretty tricky. When I've been out in the buildings, I've certainly seen instruction. So I was thinking about, some of my visits recently, and one was to an elementary school, and I walked in and there was a social studies lesson happening. So you're seeing instruction, but at the same time, there are students who may be home who are isolating or who are quarantining. Or you have staff out and they're subs. So I would say there's certainly an impact happening on instruction. I know teachers have remarked and reflected real concerns about students and helping students stay, quote, caught up. So I think it is going to impact and has impacted some of the pacing. I think we can also alleviate some of that pressure though, too, in terms of, what our expectations are. We certainly need to attend to students' academics and make sure that we're addressing learning gaps. But there is also a pandemic still going on, and we need to not do that at the expense of their mental health, their social emotional health, and their physical health. I think the biggest cost instructionally perhaps would probably be seen at the high school. I think that the high school has had some of the higher percentages of absences. The students are older, a little bit more independent. So if we have limited subs, we're going to prioritize them to a certain degree with our younger students who really need that grown up there to supervise and keep them physically safe. So I would say that there's probably some consequences instructionally at the high school. I think everybody is working super hard, really trying their best. And, we'll prioritize, I think one thing that teachers are good at, and with the help of curriculum specialists and department heads, is prioritize what those essential content standards are, so that because not everything rises to the same level of importance within a particular course. They'll prioritize what's needed for the kids.
Thank you, and
You're welcome.
thank you and the administration, of course, the teachers, as well as continuing to adapt to present circumstances, but also assisting the students with their needs going forward, and helping exactly what you're saying, identify the essentials and adapting going forward. So thank you.
Thanks. Sue.
So, Elise?
So with the home rapid test, is there like is there a number, a percentage that you're looking for, or the state is looking for people to opt in? Like, is there any type of sort of guidelines, or it's just
There's
hopefully people do?
There's no threshold that we
Okay.
have to meet.
So it's just like, we'll see who we can
Yeah.
get. Okay, thanks.
Megan?
I don't know if I missed this. Is this just for the students or for staff as well?
It's for staff as
Staff,
well.
so, okay,
Yep. We've had a very good response from staff so far. Their survey went out earlier.
okay. Makes sense.
Thank you very much for the comments you made about students and how they're doing with their coursework. I know that I am privileged. My son is he's okay. I'll keep him. But whenever I do start to get stressed and I see that he is kind of falling behind, like, I try to take a step back. Like, he's going to graduate from high school. He's going to be fine. My stress isn't going to help him. So we're just trying to get through all this together. I wonder if we could, I know that at the beginning we had the citizens' comments about the FDA approval, if we could get clarification on that.
That language was from Desi that I
Okay.
put, that was in the letter, so my apologies. It is noted on their website, but I will follow up with Desi tomorrow, that this product's not been FDA cleared or approved, but has been authorized by FDA
Oh,
under an EUA.
okay.
So
Alright.
I will bring that question up to Desi at our meeting tomorrow, but that what is noted on their website.
I figured that was the case. So thank you very much,
Yes.
Paula.
If I could
It's appreciated.
add something to that. So, yeah, when you do these tests, you're not putting anything in your body. You're using a sterile swab. to
It's the
collect
sterile swab, correct?
Yeah, so it's, you're not giving yourself chemicals or anything
Correct,
like that. There's no risk by giving yourself a COVID test.
correct. That is my understanding, correct.
But
Thank you very much, Paula.
You welcome.
All right. Anything else? Nope. All right. Dr. Ahern, you're all set with
I'm
the,
all set,
okay.
yep.
All right, information matters. Superintendent evaluation, Elise.
We're meeting on Thursday to review the superintendent evaluation process.
All right, awesome.
Mhm.
Budget, Dave?
Budget subcommittee has not met since our last meeting. We are working to finalize a date right now for next month, and it'll be posted as soon as we do.
Okay. Policy, Dave?
We have not met since our last meeting, but we do have our meeting coming up on February 2nd.
February 2nd. What time was that again? 6? Anybody? Yeah.
I
6.
believe so.
All right.
That's right.
Yes.
7:30.
All right, just making sure. Joint PCC, Al or Megan, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we have not met.
Have not
and
met.
Our next meeting is on bear with me 1 second. I have this, the 8th.
The 8th.
Thank you.
All right, lots going on the 8th. School Wellness Advisory, Lucas, Elise?
We haven't had a meeting since we last updated you,
Okay.
so February 1st is our next meeting.
February 1st, got it.
Mhm.
And CPAC?
CPAC had a virtual Q&A session tonight at 7
I know,
PM.
I
I
saw
know, it's like
that.
a conflict. And so in the future, we're gonna hope to schedule on different times because we
Okay.
know everybody wants to go to CPAC and everybody wants to go to school committee and it's a hard choice. So I'm looking forward to sharing future events with the school committee and the community as they nail down those dates.
All right.
Mhm.
And community relations, our next meeting is February 1st. We've been discussing our community coffee chats, our upcoming legislative forum, and our newsletter. We'll have more to come. Substance abuse task force, our next meeting is February 8th.
Another meeting on
Lucas?
the 8th, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And our DEI committee is meeting February 9th. All right. I didn't miss anyone, did I? No. Okay. All right, new business, Dr. Ahern.
So the big item on the next agenda is the diversity, equity, and inclusion presentation.
Okay. All right. Consent agenda, Dr. Ahern.
I recommend approval of the minutes from your January 11th, 2020 school committee meeting as detailed. I recommend approval of the budget transfers as detailed. I recommend acceptance of a check for $664.40 from Music Parents for supplemental supplies as detailed. I recommend approval of the request of Diane Plouffe to take jazz band students to the University of New Hampshire in Durham, New Hampshire on March 12th, 2022 to participate in the annual Jazz Festival as detailed. And if you're wondering why that's in the consent agenda, is we've typically put recurring field trips in the consent agenda rather than having a discussion action item.
Okay.
And I recommend approval of the executive session minutes from the January 11th, 2022 meeting for release as detailed.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion, questions? Anyone? I guess I had a question about the transfers. I'm just wondering, how is there $75,000 to transfer from teachers to counseling services? So like, why is there so much money being moved there?
Yeah, so the counseling services, that position came before the committee after the budget was approved in, I want to say, end of July, early August at that meeting. That line item wasn't overexpended until a recent hire in the past, I would say 2 months. I think this came before the committee in November, at the end of November. And so because the line item is expended once that encumbrance came through, this is why we're transferring now to cover that 75,000 for the new counselor that was hired at the Parmenter Elementary School.
Perfect. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Sure.
All right. All right, so motion in a second. The vote will come on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, payment of bills. I've reviewed the bills, payroll.
Payroll is in order.
Okay. All right, so we will be adjourning next to executive session and we will not be returning to open meeting. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with non-union personnel. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote to go into executive session. Camille?
Yes.
Dave Callahan?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Dave McNeil?
Yes.
Elise? Yeah. Megan?
Yes.
Denise? Yes. I'm a yes, yes. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Recording stopped.